You've found AHO Radio. We're authentic human outliers coming together to help heal the fear of being authentic, to bring back genuine human conversation. No hype, no sensationalism, just honest talk about the critical issues affecting society, affecting humankind. And now, here are the hosts of AHO Radio, John Krotek and Bill Protzmann. And a very good day, everyone. It's Pearl Harbor Day, the 7th of December, 2020. I am so happy to be here this morning. I just can't tell you, the world has been changing and I am feeling the shift. So, hey, good morning in AHO. Authentic Human Outliers Radio is here to offer our audience comfort and support for being the genuine, thoughtful, amazing people that you are, to be a safe place to trade ideas without too much judgment, and to model what a conversation, real dialogue, can accomplish. I'm Bill Protzmann, moderator and co-host for today's conversation. Our objective today is to expand the idea of how AHO Radio began when John Krotek and I launched it early in 2020. Authentic discussion of topics that matter most. The conversation is just that, a series of essential topical discussions. Today's show is one of them. The conversation isn't so much about the answers as it is about the process of loving the questions themselves. Then, as that great poet philosopher Rilke once wrote, you will, gradually and without noticing it, live your way into the answer. Before we unveil today's topic, I want to introduce the team. First of all, John Krotek, co-host of AHO Radio, founder of Green Zone Hero and #Planet. John, we love you, buddy, and I'm looking forward to seeing you the very next time. Everyone, John has recovered from COVID, and what a blessing. Most importantly, bring in your wisdom, courage, and expertise to the conversation today. I'm honored and humbled to welcome Steven Morrison, founder of the Spiritual Workout. Hey, Steven. And Julia Stubbe, intuitive spiritual counselor and amazing individual. You guys, so great to be here. Welcome aboard for our final conversation in this series. So unlike many discussions these days, Authentic Human Outliers Radio has an unwritten agenda to be thoughtful, succinct, and honest. Some of us already know the final answer to the most essential questions we can ask, but for most of us, it's helpful to sort of agree to cooperate or even disagree with honor in service to the process of living our way in to the answers. It's going to take us a few short shows to actually get where we wanted to go today. And I want to thank you guys, Steven and Julia, for being a part of this and living our way into the answer, whatever it is that we're finding here along our little spiritual journey. Thank you for your generosity and your vulnerable participation. So as always—
Thank you for letting us participate.
Oh, absolutely, you guys. I mean, I love being able to sit back and just let it wash over me. And listeners, if you're out there, get ready because we've got a good one coming. I feel it. So every week we have a question.
No pressure.
No pressure at all. No. You guys live this stuff. The question this week is one I think that serves outliers like us because it comes close to our hearts, as hopefully all these questions do. How is it that we can, how do I want to say this? It's a desire question. Like, what's your deepest desire? And really it comes down to, what do you want? What do you want? I mean, really, what do you want? We know that attention and intention are intricately intertwined. So what you give your attention to is actually your intention. How do you dial that up? Philosophers talk about this agreement between first and second level volition. It's like, so you see something shiny, it's like shiny, shiny, right? But until your mind makes a choice to chase the shiny, you are not completely aligned. You are in your desire. So let's discuss how what we want works along our journey to healing or whatever it is that we're after. What do you want?
I want Julia to start.
Yes.
So for me, I have my daily wants and then I have my long-term wants. And my long-term one is pretty broad because I just want to be in bliss. I want freedom. I want joy. And I trust with that intention that the universe is going to let that unfold. And so I just really embrace that request every day, that's the long-term goal. But daily, it's like, what do I want my day to look like? What would I like in this day? Do I want more beauty? Do I want more joy? And that's the intention I set for the day. So I focus more on being in the moment and what I want in that moment, with the long-term goals that I trust that the universe is going to allow things to unfold, because I'm being in my authentic self. I'm being in my heart space. So the details, instead of me having conclusion of what I think those details should be, I want to leave the possibilities open for the universe to give me something better than I can even imagine. So that's where I put my wants. So I stay in the question a lot of times. How does it get better than this? How does it get easier than this? What else is possible? And then I follow the breadcrumbs, and then I ask another question. So that's how I go about the wants. It's like, I mean, I want basic things. I want, my needs to be met, but I trust that, because that comes with bliss. That comes with everything. So I don't get into the minor details.
So you're saying that as long as you have a desire, I don't want to call it a goal, but as long as you have a long-term goal, you can trust that the short-term stuff will take care of itself?
Well, I do a daily intention of what I want for that day. But long-term, it's like, it doesn't mean I don't take action steps when things show up, because I'm trusting that the universe is giving me the possibilities. And like, so when something shows up and it feels heavy or light, and how I feel about it, if it feels light, then it's like I take the action step towards it. If it feels heavy, it's like, not so much. So that follows my path into my final desire of freedom and bliss, and that joy and happiness that I just want to have all the time. That's where I want to be, because my belief is that if I have all that, I have everything I need.
There's so much to unpack in there, and I want to track. So Steven, any comments?
No, I mean, nothing in particular. I think
Does it sound familiar?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was kind of getting at. It sounds familiar. And, there's so many times in the world that I work in where we have different words and phrases and language for, I think, a lot of the same ideas. So as I listen to Julia, some of those thoughts and ideas are very much in alignment with how I see this whole question of what do you want and what we do about it. Even if I might turn around and use different words to describe the same thing, perhaps. I'm not so sure.
This is an interesting question. If we take it out of our little conversation and apply it to the world, there's so many people, I think, in the world that want peace, for example. I'll just pick on peace, or something even more grounded, like food.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of different ways that people have of getting to those things. Right. Is it all just a language issue, or is like the desire for peace in the Hindu belief system the same as a desire for peace in a monotheistic system, even though they might communicate about what that looks like differently?
No, I don't think it's just languaging at all. Like, you started this by saying something, Bill. I think you said attention goes to intention. Oh yeah, intention follows attention. Right, and it's so funny because I use both of those words, and I think I use them in the opposite order. So the intention, what do I want? Let me get clear about that. And then the choice and the practice to focus my attention on my intention. So this is an example of, I don't even know anymore. We're using the same words, we're using different words. Is it the same idea? Is it a completely different idea? But where I personally come from, bottom line, is, and I think this comes from my own personal journey, my childhood was just steeped in a whole bunch of no, you can't. No, right, because I said so. No. And I feel like I grew up in the wrong area because all my peers were getting a lot of yeses, And so I came into my adulthood with a lot of old beliefs about what was possible, as I think we all
Limiting,
do.
like
Yeah,
very in the box kind of beliefs.
right. And an absolute belief embedded in my being that I can't have what I want. Fundamentally.
Fundamental 180 degrees from what
Yeah.
do you want, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then, oh, here's some new information. Here's, law of attraction is a big thing in my world. And what do you mean I can be, do, or have whatever I want? I've been told my whole life I can't have what I want. And that for me is what started to really shift the whole thing.
Changed it around.
Yeah. So it's become for me a process of let's get really clear on what we want. And that wanting is okay. That wanting, I do distinguish between a want that comes from the head and a want that comes from the heart.
Yeah, those are the first and second order volition kind of things.
Yeah. And so for me, I'm always personally endeavoring to listen to what emerges, that true desire, right? And with zero judgment for anybody about, it's not up to me to be an arbiter of who wants what, right? I don't care what anybody wants. I want people to believe that they can have what they want. I want people to, I want to offer anything I can to help people along that process. A, to believe that it's okay to want something. B, to articulate it well enough so that we can focus some attention on it. And then going through that process of choosing to give attention to the intention, right? The more we focus on it, what we focus on grows, that whole thing. So when I first was learning all this, and beliefs have a lot to do with it, they go hand in hand, right? So when I heard myself as I was driving around in a rush looking for a parking spot, say, I never get a parking spot.
Well, then you just claimed that, because I always say, I get a parking spot, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, and there it is. So
well, that was not my orientation. It became my orientation because I got new information. So I learned something about the process of, like you say, Bill, that transformation from I can't to I can, that 180-degree full body transformation to the point where now I can't not get a parking spot. It's just not an issue. Even when I think maybe, well, my parking might be a little, no, here's a spot right here, right? So I've completely reoriented, and it was only a mind thing, right? And so, all right, now I kind of get it. And so to me, it's really the first question I ask people when they come in, for all intents and purposes. It's, what do you want? What are we doing here? Because at least as a practitioner in the work that I do, I don't really feel like I have much of anything to offer anybody if I don't have a sense of what they want.
So in your own personal work, you guys, do you get any more specific, Julia, than bliss? Does it break down to a place where you go, oh, this, whatever it is, this radio show, this new skill that I'm learning, I want that?
Well, actually, things show up that I'm like actually walking through the fear. It's like when the radio show showed up, it was like, okay, this feels like this. Okay, this feels like I'm supposed to do this, but I still have this line of fear that I'm supposed to do. And I'm just going to step through the fear because I trust that this is what I'm supposed to do on my journey to freedom or whatever that is. So, or journey to wholeness.
It's so interesting you pick fear. Is that like a magnet for you?
Well, fear can be like the unknown. It's like, well, I've never done the radio show before. This was 6 years ago when I was approached. It's like, I got approached, do you want to do a radio show? And it's like, put yourself out there. And it was like, well, this is different, putting myself out there. So there was that line of fear. It's like, whether we, it's a matter of how we deal with the fear. Do we walk through it, or do we let it freeze us? So my choice was not to let it freeze me and not to let it keep me from going places, but to walk through it and and say, okay, I'm leaving that fear go. I'm going to embrace trust that this is going to be fun and it's going to be great. And I'm going to learn from it and I'm going to grow from it and I'm going to touch people's lives in a positive way with it. So that for me is more of the way I operate, because it's like it's something that shows up. The universe gives me that opportunity, a door opens up. So, and I'm trusting that it's all part of the game plan of the final once.
So that I'm clear here, I'm going to play the newbie for a second. Is that kind of an example of a shift from 3D consciousness to 5D consciousness? Where fear is like terrifying, but then it becomes an invitation?
Well, I think fear can show up anywhere. It's like, so fear is like, it can be just angst. It can be just feeling uncomfortable with something. So you can define it as angst or uncomfortable. I'm not really comfortable with this, but it's still deep down. There's that little bit of fear, the fear of the unknown, the fear of how it's going to play out, the fear of not knowing all the steps. So that's all part of our beliefs. So it goes back when I'm working with a client, it's like, what's your intention? And then we look at the beliefs that, like they want to, and a lot of people that come to me want to awaken or utilize their spiritual gifts, or they want to be a healer, or they want to do this. And it's like, well, what's keeping from them? So it's like, we look at their beliefs of whether they feel deserving, and we diminish those beliefs, or, if there is a fear, like maybe in a past life, for being their authentic self, they were killed or hung or betrayed. So we look at all that so we can let that go. Is that, I'm not sure if that answered what you asked.
No, I think you're hearing it the same way. Steven, for you, the same sort of question. Do you see 5D consciousness as more inviting, or as opposed to 3D consciousness, which is pretty restrictive, like, oh, it's going to hurt if I do this, versus, hey, there's a possibility here?
Well, to me, if fear is in the mix, that's evidence that it's 3D consciousness, right? If 5D, my understanding and the fear doesn't exist there, right? And fear in my world is really nothing more than a belief. It's just, it's not a thing that is rained down upon us. It's just a specific belief, right?
Well, but there's a physiological way to measure fear.
In my world, and maybe because I'm just so focused on the mind and the work I do is about the mind, I don't think that physiological response happens. And I'm not a biologist, I could be completely wrong, but I don't think it's separate from a thought underneath it that is a quote unquote fearful thought, right? I won't be okay, I'm vulnerable. I don't know.
I can challenge that.
Yeah, please.
Because when you put your hand in the fire, you don't have to think about pulling it away. I mean, at a very spinal cord level,
right,
you have that response.
But I'm not
before you even think about, oh, ouch.
Right. I thought you were talking more about, so I'm lying in bed and it's 3 a.m. and my body is freaking out because I've got some fear, some anxiety going on, and I'm in a sweat. So that physiological stuff is still, for me, at least, was rooted in very specific thoughts I was having.
So you're talking about a different kind of a fear, not the gut level fear, but the kind of fear that is your mind run amok.
Correct.
Well, the kind of fear that I'm just saying that the root of that, other than the fire kind of example, the root of it is some fear of whatever the fear is. I won't be okay. I won't survive. I'm going to die. I'm going to be left alone. I'm going to, whatever those things are.
A manufactured fear.
That are causing me to wake up in a cold sweat. Waking up in the cold sweat, the bed is wet, is real. Yeah. But where did it come from? Did it come from the sky, or did it come from some thought that I have that's so powerful that it's waking me up and having an effect on my body? And that thought, there's nothing wrong with having it. We're not bad people. But I like to just work
what's the acronym for fear? It's false
evidence appearing real.
So it's what we believe. It's our belief that we're believing that that's real, like that we're going to fail, or we're not going to be good at what we're doing, So that's the fault, and that's what's causing the anxiety. So it is a false evidence appearing real. So that's what's creating it. So it's not a physical danger, but our body is responding to it because of our belief system.
And when I change that belief, I no longer wake up at 3 a.m. in a cold sweat.
Sure. And Wim Hof can swim underwater in freezing temperatures and hold his breath forever. And, he can walk across the fire with Tony Robbins.
Right.
So you can override your physiological programming by overriding your belief set.
Yes, I think so.
Yeah. And there's power in that.
Yeah, because we have total control over it, which is the power. Yeah, 100%. We don't have to wait for anybody to do anything. We don't need permission. We don't need, money. Just need a little information.
So I want to challenge this because it's an interesting thing. And people like to say, well, New Age belief sets, there's no downside. Like they know what they're talking about. And I believe that there's some truth in that, because people who see us doing what we do may not also understand that it comes with deep payment. I mean, we have actually paid our dues with fear to be able to be where we are now. It's not like we're just ignoring it.
Right.
Would you agree with that? So in this area of 5D consciousness where we all have to operate, we believe there is no fear, right? So for us, there is no fear. Is that accurate?
It is for me.
It's the belief. It's our belief that creates the fear.
Like in the first place. Even though we were little kids, stuck our hand in the fire, ouch, that hurts. So that becomes like the seed of the belief that is a fearful belief. And things pile on. I better not do that. It might hurt me.
Well, there's common sense too. And, that's been misnamed.
Yeah, the language barrier is a hard one, which is why I'm spending so much time on this, because people are listening. There is a difference between physiological response and choice, like volition. And that first order volition might be get your hand out of the fire, but the second order volition might be I need to reach in there and pull my child out of the burning house. And we've all heard those kinds of stories where people can lift cars and do other stuff when the belief becomes so powerful that it overrides even the physical symptoms of being burned. So,
well, that, since this is a conversation about want and desire.
Yeah.
Also, I mean, again, I don't know anything, but maybe it's the want, the desire to get the kid out of there that's so powerful that becomes what drives the whole thing. That becomes how the mom lifts the car up, or the dad or whomever, flies into the fire and rescue. I mean, what do you want? I want to save my kid's life. I don't know. Is it the desire that runs that whole thing? Or I don't know. To me, the whole fear desire thing comes not from those emergency situations.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that you can make that powerful choice and use it in other ways other than in an emergency.
Yeah, and I don't think those people are having a lot of conscious thoughts at the moment.
No, but they definitely have an alignment. They have a very, very big desire at that moment.
Yeah.
To do whatever the thing is.
Right.
A soldier saving a buddy who's been wounded on the battlefield, or parent.
But when we talk about what do you want, I don't think at all in terms of those kinds of scenarios.
Well, they're not your wants.
Right.
But when somebody shows up for a session and says, well, I want to save my child from a fire, that doesn't happen too often either.
No, that doesn't. Exactly.
Or right. I want to be a hero and save someone on the battlefield. Those aren't the kind of wants as a practitioner that I hear from my clients. So
exactly.
It's like, I don't, it's like how that works is like, who knows how that works? It's like, because it could be, you could go down to divine intervention, their belief could be that much that they, and that takes part of that. But for me, it's like I work on a daily basis. Like today, it's like I have to put my contacts in so I can see. And it's like, okay, I would like you to go in nice and easy without any issue, because it's like sometimes I have issues, so I have to talk to them and tell them what I want. And so it's from that little stuff to the big stuff, and the desire and the intention. And like if I feel something that may cause angst or fear or whatever, I go down to my root, I go down to my foundation, and I solidify that with divine trust and flow. And that's part of my belief, because that's where I want to be. I want to be in divine trust and flow. So with that, I allow magic to happen.
I like the language of allowing and being clear. There always seems to be a point where you have to let go. So once you establish what you want, how closely do you hold on to that? And at what point do you sort of turn it over?
I think that's a really good question. And I think it's different for wherever anybody is starting the process, right? So on the one hand, there's somebody who is so consciously detached from what they want that it really takes some effort for them to really get clear about it and to start to think in terms of it. So for that person, at that time, there's much more focus on the thing itself, or the whatever the want is, that desire. Whereas further down in the process, when that clarity is no longer questioned, when it is easy to align with, then it's much more, from my perspective, much more of that dance of just allowing it, like checking in. Am I good? Am I everything okay? Yeah, it's 100%. Okay, now all I have to do is allow it. Now all I have to do is be in a good mood and feel good. And it doesn't matter. I don't have to be thinking about that one specific thing, because the allowing happens when my vibration is high enough and is a match for what I'm wanting. So it really depends. But that person on day one who can't even articulate one sentence about what they want, although it's in there, we're not in the allowing phase quite yet.
Right. I see the difference there. That makes sense.
And with allowing comes trust, just trust in knowing that it's going to happen, and believing that.
Does allowing first feel a little bit like risk? Like, I can't let go of this thing because I've got all these goals and my objectives are lined up and I've got my day planner and I'm going to get to that thing, at what point does that become allowing?
Well, I still think you have to take your action steps. It's like if you want something and things show up for you to do that, then you want to take action steps with it. It's like, you don't know what it looks like, and you can be open to change and shifting so that it can, flow with it, whatever that is. But my belief is I can't just sit here and do nothing and have everything happen. I have opportunities come to me, and I take the action that brings me to another action, or it brings me to an event or something that brings that joy. But I follow through, like if spirit, and the way it is, it's like spirit guides me. It's like spirit will tell me, it's like, okay, I want you to get up and I want you to go here at 6:30 in the morning and watch the sunrise. But spirit, and I actually have conversations because, well, it's raining out and we just did this yesterday. So, yeah. But I do that. I listen to my guidance. I do that and sit in the rain, and it's like, can I leave yet? No, not yet. Order something else. I'm like, oh. But then something shows up. I had a person show up in that exact thing that led to a beautiful clearing, emotional clearing, and magic happening. And I made a new friend, and it was like, wow. And I was like grateful because I took the action of what I was being guided to do. And with not having parameters of what it looked like to have all this happen, I gave it the freedom to show up however it was supposed to show up.
Same in my practice, you know, it's of course getting clear on what we want, and a big part of it is it's a real paradigm shift from taking action. Here's my list of 50 things, 100 things I think I could do to quote unquote achieve this goal, to make this happen, to just be in action. And trading that dynamic in for exactly what Julia is saying, which is taking inspired action. So once we get clear about the what, most of us have been trained in the old way of just with the how. Yeah, what's your goal, your objective, but grind it out. Now, come on, you make it happen, you know? And that's just the way it's been. So over here, most of that effort is about aligning with the intention, getting super clear about it, believing that it's possible, and all of that alignment. And that's where the inspiration comes, to go to in the rain to the place and just be quiet, right? I mean, okay, you know, and that is a huge, I mean, talk about a dance and talk about a transformation from going from the old way of doing that to the new way, you know?
It takes courage. That's the concept. So it's the concept of that it's going to be, as opposed to linear thinking with all the steps. It's the concept that this is going to happen, and trusting the concept. So it's conceptual thinking, which to me is thinking with your heart and trusting with your heart. As to linear thinking is to letting your monkey mind take over. You know, because your monkey mind says, well, it's not going to work if you don't do this, or you missed step 3. You need to go back to step 3. It's like, whoa. So I just like to be in my heart with the concept and trust that this is what my desire is for the day, or my desire for, you know, the near future, and trust that however I'm guided, that I'm going to listen to that guidance, and I'm going to show up, and I'm going to play and dance with it. Yeah.
I remember being a very young entrepreneur, and how there was no how-to, there was no guidance. I just knew I had to do this thing, and I would figure out how to do it, or it would figure out how I could do it on its own. Like there was this, I have no clue here, kind of sense of the purpose somehow magically unfolding. And I'm saying magically because I didn't know anything then. I've learned a great deal since. And now there are two camps in that entrepreneurial thing. There's the one camp that says, here are all the rules. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, here's the 24 things, like this guy from MIT has written a book, right? Here's the 24 things you've got to do to be an entrepreneur. And then there's the other camp that says, unless you're called, you're not an entrepreneur. And I think that that is the illustration of what you guys are talking about here, how there's something more than just your linear thinking or strategic mind that is involved in the shift of consciousness, or maybe the shift of consciousness is what creates that other thing from 3 to 5D, right? Is there anything that you could say to somebody who's sort of stuck in business right now and is very clear about what they want? Because they've written it all down, you know, it's like right there, the goals are very clear. But what would you say to somebody like that who is stuck and not making any progress about what they want?
Well, I would ask, is what they want make their hearts sing?
I love the musical analogy, of course.
Because if they're just doing it because they think that that's what they need to do to make money, or to impress someone, or to have prestige, but it doesn't make their hearts sing, then maybe they're not in alignment.
Same question, Steven, because I want to track this with you guys.
Well, no, I'm glad. I love it because working with entrepreneurs is one of my favorite things. And to really see somebody who comes in, the way it always looks to me, at least with the people that find their way to me, is they're super clear about the word that we overuse now, passion, right? They're super clear that they're being called, that this is what lights them up. And it's obvious, and that's not an issue. And yet, but the issue is they're stuck in the old way of how to make that happen, and that to-do list of 100 action items, and they're frustrated, and they're exhausted. And as soon as they start talking and I hear that that's where they are and that's their experience, it becomes very obvious that through no fault of their own, they're just stuck in the how. How am I going to make this happen? How am I going to turn this passion into my business? How am I going to take the little bit of business I have and make it into a whole lot more? You know, so that's where we move, right? Well, what do you want? Oh, well, what do you mean? What do I want? You want your business to be booming and thriving, some version of that. Oh, yeah. Well, what does that mean? What does that look like? Well, yeah. And so we start really moving into the what. And I find it's very powerful. That's not a good word, but it's amazing.
Yeah, all the good words are gone now.
Right, I know. No words mean anything anymore. But it's really, it's impressive to see people make that shift. Like, oh, and I think Julia was talking about this too, you know, letting go of how it's all going to happen and letting go of when. That is super hard when we have investors who want to see measurements by a certain time, or, you know, a boss who's just saying, come on, I need this by Tuesday, or whatever it is. And then we move into this other world where, yeah, you can have and do whatever you want. You have that beautiful business. Of course you can have that, but you don't get to decide how it's all going to happen. And sorry to say, you don't get to decide when, and that freaks everybody out, because what do you mean when? I got bills to pay, I need to and this urgency. And so it is not an easy sell for someone like me to take someone like that and say, hey, I have a whole new way of doing it and you're really going to hate it. You know, so I don't sell anybody, but they find their way, and it's like, come on, let's go. And that's what I mean. It really is impressive to see somebody come from that place and say, wait, what a minute, what do you mean the intention? I've been doing my business for 2 years. I'm like, I need to hear and see it in a different way. You know what I mean? Right. And so we do it and we get ready and not ready. We move into that way and we move into the alignment. And I'm super adamant that the entrepreneurs I work with on day one start setting at a minimum 2 separate intentions. One for the business itself. What's it like to be running it? What's it like to be doing it? What's it like to be all of that? And then a separate one for their financial money life, because we have conflated these two things, and entrepreneurs, especially entrepreneurs that are more solopreneurs or have smaller teams or doing it without a lot of outside mentorship and investment, really, you know, get stuck because they can't, how is it going to make money? I need money by the first, and So we separate those. You want your business, right? And you want a happy financial life. Let's think about those things separate from one another. And, you know, again, watching people come through that and make it. And then what they wind up saying is, you know, I was kind of stuck in this and that, and now my business is really so much better. I'm so much happier. Things are moving in ways that I didn't even possibly imagine. And they have really impressively, again, my word, you know, made this massive shift in their consciousness in terms of how to go about being, doing, and having what they want.
This sounds so different from fake it until you make it.
It is very different. And yet within my process, there is a moment where, you know what, people just fake it till you make it, but it's a piece of the whole thing. It's not, it's because the moment comes where, okay, the intention's shiny and clear. Part of me just doesn't believe it. Okay, that's fine. And we deal with the belief on that level and we change the beliefs. And part of it is, yeah, I mean, one day I had a friend who knows my work and what I do. And we're friends. And he asked me about something that was going on. And he said, and I said, oh yeah, it's great. And he said, so is that like your intention response, or is that what's really happening? And I said, yes. Because wherever you are in the process.
Time out, dude, that's a punt. I mean, I get it. I really do get it. But, you know, you're cracking us up here, Steven.
How? What am I doing?
I get it. I understand where Steven's coming from, because it's like, and mine's completely different, because people come to me because they want to embrace their intuitive gifts, or they want to have their spiritual path. So it's like, we have this thing when we go into meditation or guided imagery, it's like, see, know, or feel. And it's like, some people don't. Some people don't necessarily see energy or know that it's happening or feel. So I say, use your imagination, because the seeds of reality are in your imagination, and just keep using your imagination, or, just pretend. And eventually that other stuff is going to open up for you, because your physiology is going to take over. It's like, oh, yes, we can do this now. So it's creating that new pattern, or, so it's not the same the way you do it, Stephen, but it still has a little piece of.
It's the same moment.
It's the same moment.
That crucial moment, right? I almost said the critical moment, but that crucial moment right there, where, Julia, you would say, where you risk it, you trust.
Mm-hmm.
And Stephen would say that it's the same thing, right?
Well, it's because trust is a huge part of it. It's a huge, I do an intention setting clinic every week. And the one place where people break down, it all boils down to, so you don't really trust the process. You trust it for other people. You trust it when you read it in a book, but you're not trusting that it's going to work for you. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. That's just a belief. We can work with that. But when I say the fake it till you make it, I mean, in my world, setting an intention and engaging the intention setting process and moving from, I don't know what I want, to fully embodying what we want before it shows up is a bit of a process. And somewhere in there, for a lot of people, there is a moment or a bit of fake it till you make it that's required to align with the intention and the desire. I have that has not yet happened, right? So when my friend calls in the middle of me doing this and asks a pointed question, I have a choice. I either have to come out of my own practice and say, well, no, it's not here yet, which I don't want to do, because the practice says it's here now, even though it's not here now, it's here now, because it's all here now, right? So I don't want to come out of that and say a statement that actually in that moment feels false, even though it's true.
Right.
And the false statement feels true, even though it's not true. But that's just because that's where I am with that particular intention on that particular day. Does that make sense?
It totally does. It's like music, because some notes work well together and some notes don't. And you generally avoid the ones that don't,
right,
because you want to make something beautiful in the end.
Right.
Right. So you use the ones that don't, like that moment where you had to choose.
Yeah.
That's an incredible moment, right? And you made the choice consistent with your beliefs and what you want.
And and because I'm listening to inspiration and feeling my way through it all, it was a lighthearted, fun moment in a conversation that allowed me to stay in alignment. If I said, well, no, it's not here yet, and done it, and then he would have asked me about that, and I
got
would
all
have
angsty
come
in the
out
rabbit
of
hole.
it.
Yeah.
Right. And I would have done it because he's my friend and he wants to just know what's going on. But I didn't want to do it because it would have taken me out of that alignment. And alignment with the desire is, until the thing shows up, where we want to be. That's where we allow it to happen.
So it's wonderful to have that clarity. But let's say, Julia, I show up with you and I'm like, Julia, I don't have clarity right now. I have no clue what it is that I should want. Now I'm using that word should intentionally here. It's like, I thought I wanted this, but clearly it's not what I want.
Well, first of all, we would make sure you're grounded and really connected. And then it's like, we would just say, okay, about your heart. How does that feel in your heart? When you say that, does that still make your heart like go and feel that lightness, or does it go, and then we work through that and we talk about different things that you do and where does that light up? And then from there to really define, well, you want more of that. So what is that?
I can follow, I can track mentally on that.
Because sometimes it's really scary being up in my mental head, the way it operates. So kudos to you.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking it through. I don't feel it. I can't think of any particular question right now. I'm just sort of playing the host here and asking the questions. But if I were to bring that into my heart and say, oh, then I get it. Yes. And there's that little moment. It's like falling in love. It's like falling in love every moment up with what it is that you want.
Right. And the thing is, it's like, I know we talked about the possibility because I worked with Steven and I did a trade, and part of what I wanted was a relationship, a meaningful relationship. And I had to find the belief of why it wasn't happening, as far as that goes. And the belief was that it just wasn't possible, because who would be compatible with someone who can, hear your thoughts, know when you're lying, has no place to hide? Who would even want to be with someone like that, as far as that goes? So when Steven and I did that, it's like we identified that, and through his process that he does, it made me feel very uncomfortable, because it was like he was putting that it's not possible into my system, to the point where I finally rejected it. I rejected that possibility. And it was like, so then I could reject it, that it, that was just a lie. I came to it that was just a lie, and my body said no more of that. And so it was really amazing. And then, I started feeling it, and I bring it into my daily day of what it would look like and what it would feel like, what makes my heart sing about those pieces. And then through what I facilitate, I went into my Akashic records, and I cleared all the lifetimes where it wasn't possible, based on whatever I was doing, to have a relationship that was healthy and romantic and all those beautiful things that I wanted, and cleared that. So I took what Steven gave me and facilitated for me, and then I let it expand on how I do it. But Steven helped me identify the core issue, the core feeling, the core belief that I just didn't think it would happen, and I didn't really understand why, but it was really, I just didn't think it was possible, and to really embrace that and take a look at it. So your want had reached a plateau, and the work that you did sort of blew the plateau away, so that you could bring the want closer to your bliss, I guess is a good way of saying it. Like the strategic mind was saying, well, no, you can't, and this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And that got blown apart, so that you were able to come into I want to say a deeper trust. I have a different perspective. It's like my body, my whole being, like can see the possibilities now, where it's like I just couldn't even see the possibilities. So therefore it was like it wasn't possible, because I couldn't see the possibilities. I'm all about opening the doors of possibility, but in that and the structure of my life and the things that happened in my life, it's like, it didn't mean I didn't want it. I did want it.
Yes.
But and I could put that desire out there, but the belief that was holding me back was the belief that it wasn't possible, and I wasn't correlating that. So it gave me the knowledge and the awareness, and not only that, through the process that Steven did, it made me realize that it was a lie. So it really broke that belief apart, and it detached that belief from me.
Steven, I know you want to comment on this. I've seen you about to talk 13 times already.
Yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. So that's a perfect example. And thank you, Julia, for that time that we had, because it didn't take very long. And it's that whole thing. It's like the belief underneath it all, it's not possible. Living in our system long enough snuffs out even the desire. So that, do you want a relationship? No, I don't really want that. Really?
But we're relationship people, right?
That's and if you don't want it, you don't want it. But if you don't want it only because underneath it all, there's a belief that you don't think it's possible, then let's just change that belief, which Julia gave us the opportunity to do. And it's, and then there it is. And, oh God, that's what I don't need that in my system. Okay, let's, and poof, it's gone at some point. So
it's as simple as changing your mind.
Well, that's all it is.
Right,
but a lot of times, like she said, she wasn't really aware that specific belief was attaching to that specific otherwise desire, and thus keeping it all kind of stuck. So change it at the belief level, and then everything else changes.
So you had this beautiful want, Julia, and when you discovered that there was something holding you back from from
Well,
moving that.
I just knew that it just always seemed, it's like I always had the desire and the want, but I just had the feeling that I would always like question myself, like, well, who would want a woo-woo girl, you know? And
A
you know,
woo-woo guy.
Yeah.
you know, so there's that part of it, but because of the programming that we had, the belief, that belief was so deep and deep encoded in the DNA and the level. So, because it's like I've worked on different beliefs as far as around relationships goes, but to be able to go even to a deeper level, it really showed me something with myself to be able to ask for someone else to assist, because I've assisted others to go deep. But when it came to myself, it was really hard for me to do that on my own. And so when we can facilitate for each other, I'm so grateful, you know, with gratitude when I have that opportunity. And it's like, and I just followed the breadcrumbs. I followed the want, because I wanted something. And, you know, we had this with what we're doing with the show now. And it's like to reach out to Steven, and it's like, I was said, I asked him, do you want to play? You want to, you know, play in the energy or do that? Because Spirit was saying, it's like, this would be good for you. I had no idea how it was going to unfold, what it was going to look like, but I just trusted that it was going to be a piece of something that I required to move into that wholeness.
And I love what Julia did after that. And she did stuff for me in that session as well. But it was really, and this is such a good message for anybody out there who's exploring around. You know, there are all these different modalities that we have. So I did my modality with Julia, and then she went off and did her modality on herself and expanded the whole thing, you know, to go back into her Akash and see, oh, it's obvious where some of this came from, and to treat it at an even deeper level again, you know. And that's I never in a million years would have, well, it's not my bailiwick, right? I don't do it in that way. And yet it was an even more complete thing. So it's, again, the message to anybody who's going around, you know, do what feels good, and no one approach usually is going to solve it all.
In spite of what the great wisdom literature of the world that supports those ingrained belief systems wants us to think, right?
Right.
I mean, I'm being facetious about that, but I really believe what you're saying is true, Stephen, that there are many ways, you know, many paths, and that they aren't wrong. They're just different.
They're different. And if you really are drawn to one and it kind of fulfills and does it all for you, fantastic. That very well may be the case. And I also talk to a lot of people who have bounced around a lot, tried a lot of different things, and taken a lot of information and learning from all manner of different approaches, you know.
Walls of certificates behind them.
Right.
Well, and it might not even be about walls or certificates, because it's like maybe you're just drawn to a different facilitator, and it's like, okay, and then you feel like you've outgrown that. It's like, okay, so what's next? Spirit, show me where I need to go next. And it's like all of a sudden this person shows up or is recommended by somebody, and you just trust, you know, if it feels light, it's going back to my heart, using that discernment. And if it feels light, it's like, well, I'm going to follow through on this. It's like, and who knows?
And more, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm pretty much, go ahead.
Well, and to me, I want to underscore what you were just saying, Julia, because the more clear we are about what we want, which I think is always good practice because of that little bugger called the law of attraction. I mean, every single thought means something and goes somewhere and is creative. Every feeling means something and goes somewhere and is creative. So I don't know, why don't we take some of those thoughts and feelings and make them be about things we actually want to experience, because we're going to get something anyway, right? That's just where I come from. And so the more clear we are about what we want, the easier it is to listen to inspiration. In my language, listen to your heart for what to do, where that inspired action is going to come from. If we're willy-nilly and we don't really have a lot of particular desires for things to be a particular way, which is fine, nobody has to, but if we don't, then we are much more just in the willy-nilly, living by default. the whole point of everything we're talking about, the whole point of answering the question, what do you want, is to live on purpose and not by default. And the more that we can get, the more clear we are about what we want, the easier it is to listen to inspiration for what actions to take. At least that's how it seems to unfold in my world. And the last little piece I want to say about this from before your question, Bill, what if somebody doesn't know what they want? Mm-hmm. So even though that's pretty much my first question, oftentimes the answer is clear. Oftentimes the answer is sort of in the zone. And oftentimes the answer is, I have no idea what I want, and I don't think I've ever gone more than 10 minutes with somebody in a session like that, where we didn't start to articulate some things that they very much do want. But again, all those underlying beliefs about what's possible, what's not possible, that just snuff it out before it even has a chance to breathe and to make itself known. I've already got all these reasons why that was my life for the first 30 something years of my life. I can't have what I want.
Right. Because so even as a child, even as a child, I would I was always said no to, always no. So it's like, why even ask? Right. Why even take the energy to ask when you know you're going to get a no?
And yet, spiritual beings having human experience, we can't not have desire.
I know.
It's just impossible. So, and even if the desire is to have no desire, I joke all the time because I have literally never, ever studied Buddhism. I have friends who are Buddhists. Whenever I go and meet somebody new and 3 sentences in, they say, "Are you a Buddhist?" I've had that happen for 25 years. I'm like, no, I'm really not. So there's obviously a lot of just what I believe that comports with Buddhist teachings. And yet, and I joke about this, I get in fights with Buddhists sometimes at this particular question about what do you want? Because there seems to be, and I'm not a scholar, but there seems to be this strain of thinking there where I don't know if it's a personal choice to say I don't want, or if it's part of the teaching to just, but to me, even that is a want. I want to live without wants. I want to live and just see what shows up. That sounds like a big fun adventure to me.
Yeah,
it
that
also
could be
sounds like an absolute desire.
Right.
From people who are saying I don't want any desires. So I don't know. I don't always understand it. And I joke about fighting with Buddhists only on this one question. It's the only place where we seem to.
Well, there is time for one more question.
Diagram ourselves.
Let's be real concise. It's the holiday season. Hanukkah's on Friday, begins on Friday. Christmas is coming up. Kwanzaa. This is the time of giving. And I want you to say to the world right now, to all the givers that are out there, what is it that you want? Pick the top thing on your list. What do you want?
Kindness.
For yourself. You want to be more kind?
No, I want more kindness in the world.
Flowing in. Okay, got it.
So I want, if they're going to give, they're givers. What can they give? They can give kindness.
Yes. Clear, powerful, I feel it. Steven, what do you want?
For myself or for others?
Your choice.
I'm on a compassion kick. Compassion is the basis of the new consciousness. It informs everything. It's kindness. I'm having a personal moment of feeling like the society in which I live is failing miserably on this particular value. And I say all the time that problems and issues are caused by deficits of consciousness and solved with infusions of consciousness. And I would love for some infusions of compassion to lead us forever, starting today.
In the typical podcast, we'd unpack exactly how that's going to happen, but this isn't a typical podcast. The people who are listening to this on some level get it, either through frustration with everything they've tried already, or through complete alignment with what it is that you guys are saying right now. And whatever kind of listener it is that's listening, this is the welcoming place. This is the refuge where you can be authentic and feel okay about the fact that you don't fit under the big part of the bell curve, that you're out on the ends with wisdom, and people like Steven and Julia who are practicing that wisdom, like every day in real life, as human beings, like all of us are. I think it's about being human, isn't it? Kindness is about being human. Compassion is about being human.
I think so. And I would also say, let's study up a little bit on what compassion really means.
Mm-hmm.
I think that we don't have a full appreciation for it. So that's why we're not so good at practicing it. We think we do, so we're comfortable with the word. We find ourselves and consider ourselves to be compassionate people. I'm not saying we're not. I'm just saying that there's room for improvement. And I think that some of the deficit between my judgment of where we are today and where we could be is a non-understanding or misunderstanding of the depth and the breadth of what compassion means. And I'm excited because one way or another, that's what we're doing. We're just cultivating more and more of that, learning more and more about it, and bringing it, as you say, Bill, into our daily lives more and more of the time. And it's not about being perfect. It's just about endeavoring to, like I say, broaden and deepen our understanding and thus our practice of that. That's just me.
And it's also about having that compassion and that kindness for yourself as well.
Yes.
And to allowing you to be compassionate and kindness to yourself, because it's like a lot of people are like out there giving, but they're not feeding their own soul and feeding their own heart. And that's really important. They're not allowing themselves to receive that kindness and receive that compassion. So that's also, if you're going to gift something, gift that to yourself as well.
Well, right. So receiving, that whole idea of receiving is giving, giving is receiving. It's all in the flow. So those of us who, I mean, how many of us have met people who love to give, and no, don't, nothing for me, nothing for me, nothing for me. It's like, stop doing that. You're messing up the entire flow of the way things are supposed to be, right? And if you love to give so much and you have nobody to give to, then you don't get to give. So when we receive, we give the other person the gift of giving, and and so we have to learn to grow our receiving muscles too, because
right,
I think
because
a lot.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but the way I look at it is, it's like, because people who have a hard time receiving and they're givers, I said, well, what if you weren't allowed to give? How would that make you feel?
Right. Yeah.
So what you're doing is, by not receiving, you're sending that type of energy to the person that wants to give to you. Oh, I didn't think about it that way. So to shift that, to allow, because the gift to allow others to give to you is a gift in itself, because some people just want to be able to give something, and maybe they don't have a whole lot to give, but it can fill their heart, to be able to do so. So to allow somebody, whether it's, whether if you feel they're struggling and they shouldn't, but if that's the only thing they feel they can do, so that gives them that compassion for themselves to be able to do that. So it's really sad when you deny receiving, because you're not only denying the gift for yourself, you're denying for the person who's giving.
So our powerful intention for this episode is kindness, compassion, and I want to say reception, but that sounds like an event. Maybe it's just allowing.
Well, it could be a kindness and compassion reception.
There we go. A kindness and compassion reception. That's what we've got going here. A socially distant kindness and compassion reception. You guys, It's so incredible to be out of time after another amazing conversation. And this one has really put it all together. All the work we've done in the last 3 episodes has come together around this conversation right now in such a beautiful way. And I want to say something like happy holidays, but it's deeper than that, right? There's a sense of joy that is so much bigger than that. That's really buoyant.
It should be that joy and that happiness that shouldn't have anything to do with the holidays.
Right. It's just here.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's just here.
Exactly.
Thank you. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Julia.
Thank you,
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you,
you, listeners,
Thank you,
audience. I'll put the contact information in the show notes so you know how to find Stephen, find Julia. But oh my gosh, you guys, thank you for your candor and your insight and your wisdom and being willing to walk toward the answers together and share from your personal experience with one another exactly how that looks and how that works. And I am in awe, as always, to be able to be here and be a part of this together with you. I just, there's no other way to express it. You know, I'm supposed to make a nice sort of outro to the show here and words are just failing me. Thank you to our sponsors, Green Zone Hero, Music Care. Couldn't do this without you. Thank you, my host, John Krotek. Looking forward to seeing you again. Love you, brother. And most importantly, for everyone who's listening right now, the audience, and watching and subscribing and ringing the AHO radio bell, thank you. Until next time, I'm your co-host, Bill Protzmann, AHO. Thank you for joining us on this episode of AHO Radio. Information we mentioned is probably in the show notes, but if we missed anything, please let us know and we'll get it added for you. Subscribe to the AHO Radio channel on YouTube to stay connected, and as always, we wish you health, success, and significance. AHO!